You think when you enter heaven, you think God's going to go, "Oh, great, you watched 150 hours of television, way to go, dude, way to go, dude," or is he going to say, "How come you didn't fight the evil of your time, man? Didn't you see that Bill of Rights thing? Didn't you see that interview with that what's his over there? Did you have some of that information? It's been really important if you could have took a stand for your faith and really fought. I mean, you say you like Jesus. Well, Jesus told everybody to back off. You know, he took a whip and beat them out of the thing. He stood for truth. He wasn't afraid. He spoke truth to power. That's what we're here for, folks.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Collapse Life podcast. I'm your host, Zara Sethna. Did you know that right now there are 42 national emergencies in effect in the United States? By declaring a national emergency, the president gets expanded powers like being able to freeze assets, impose trade restrictions, and regulate some economic and military activities. Here today to talk about how an expansion of executive power can lead to autocratic rule is John Whitehead, a civil liberties attorney, author, and founder of the Rutherford Institute. John, it's so great to welcome you back to Collapse Life.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on your show and talk about important issues today.
Very, very important. And with things moving as fast as they are in DC right now, I know it's really hard for people to stay on top of everything that's happening. And so we're very grateful for all the work that you do through the Rutherford Institute to call attention to this. There's a million things that we could be talking about, but we have a limited amount of time. So I just wanted to focus on a few of the key issues that you've been writing about recently. And as I just mentioned in the introduction, there are 42 national emergencies active in the United States, which is pretty startling. And especially considering that some of those date back decades. So I'm hoping that you can help us understand what this means. What does this continual expansion of executive power actually tell us about the broader trend in presidential authority and the erosion of civil liberties, which is the main thing that you've been calling attention to?
Well, there's a number of leaders of the past that have taken the term fascist or whatever. One of the key principles they operate off of is the idea that fear is how you control a people. And as long as you're giving them a crisis, an attack, a terrorist or whatever, mass shootings, or any of this stuff that we see happening today, I always go back to what James Madison, who wrote the Bill of Rights, basically, because he didn't like the Constitution as it was drafted. It didn't protect rights, he said, like it should. And that's the idea. This is his actual statement. We ought to mistrust all those in power because if you look at history at all, and again, I've written over 30 books, and some of them I go into it, especially my last couple of books, Gun with the Wolves and Battlefield America, where I look at what history gave us. Listen, when you go back in time and look at how history has operated, I mean, it's always gone into tyranny, whether it's a Caesar or whatever. Just go through history and look, folks, a Napoleon or whatever. Whoever thinks that goes through their head that there's some kind of God or something. And it's easy for some people to believe that. They start believing that they have almost divine powers and they can do this or do that. And that's why you need a constitution, a document that will bind them down by the chains of the Constitution.
Mhm.
And there have been some great thinkers in the past that they would just rather have a government in their local hometown, and that's why they want it. They don't want to be controlled by a federal government that will overtax them, do all these things. I mean, the things that I've been writing about over the last 20 years is in trying to get people just to wake up a little bit here, folks. When I first saw it, I'm a constitutional attorney, and I've defended a lot of cases in the Supreme Court and sued a lot in and out of Washington, D.C., which, by the way, I call the most corrupt town I've ever lived in, or lived by the way. And that is that um, it's so easy to get people marching in lockstep. The government knows that. And that's why you got executive orders and all this stuff that we're seeing. A well-run government would not be always on the moment of crisis. No, we should see that. The government does not do a good job of protecting us. And let me explain why. How
Mhm.
many people realize this? This goes back, going back when I went back to my childhood. Policemen didn't even carry weapons, a lot of them, in the town I lived in. They didn't even care about that. Today, there are over 80,000 SWAT team raids annually occurring in America.
That's crazy.
The FBI now has joined into the SWAT team raid. 6 months ago, a small town in Kentucky, raided. They were looking for supposedly. This is the FBI, by the way, working with local police. Why would they be looking for a weed cutter? Someone had stolen it. Well, they busted into a guy's house, an old guy who was a veteran, by the way, in
Mhm.
the middle of the night, looking for the weed cutter. Well, it wasn't there. They shot him dead. And we've had more of those cases where veterans are coming to the door now. And they're doing these crazy raids, and they're really nasty. If you've never seen any, they do a pretty good job of putting them on some of these crime shows. But if you really read about them, and we go to our website at rutherford.org, they're really scary. Listen, the people who wrote the Constitution would say, "Are you nuts?
Mhm.
The world are you allowing this stuff for?" 80,000, and now I mean, the police today have semi these huge vans they drive. They can go through the front wall of your home. Uh, they have all kinds of weird rifles and guns and hollow point bullets. By the way, I'm a veteran, by the way. I was an infantry veteran. We weren't allowed to use hollow point bullets because
Mhm.
they were considered humane. We have
Right.
IRS agents, all the federal governments, the Smithsonian institutions now carrying, weren't running around with SWAT team gear and hollow point bullets. What for? What's the deal here? Because there really is no high crime rate in America. No, the FBI, by the way, actually a couple of years ago said this is one of the lowest periods of crime in America. The crime rate's
Mhm.
low. So what are they all geared up for to shoot and kill for? Uh, are they expecting somebody like me and you, by the way, to say, "Hey, we're going to get together, the group, and fight back"? Uh, I mean, there's a certain paranoia there that goes really deep and scary, and
Mhm.
it's because they realize that the powers they have are just hinging very loosely on what the things they do in Washington D.C., like scaring people with crises and stuff like that. And
Right.
what they want to do, I keep telling people, don't allow the government to turn a crisis into a power. Do
Mhm.
not allow that because they make them up many times. I don't know how many people in your broadcast realize, but the government has this thing called COG, COG, continuity of government.
Right.
So all these entities, business groups, whatever, and working with government agencies, they're ready to take over the government in an instant. And they've already planned it. They have the emergency state. They're ready to go in case there is a group of American citizens that might take the Constitution seriously and say, "Hey, we're going to fight back." And
Mhm.
one thing that really scares me today, to be honest with you, about generally, and there's so many things that are make me nervous, but I'm not going to quit. I tell people, don't quit. They want you to quit. They want you to go, "Oh, well, this president will save us," or "I better get away from the door. They might crash through the door in the middle of the night and get me." I tell people, listen, I'd rather go down than to give up. And
Mhm.
there's so many people today that are fearing this country and what's going
Right.
on. You go back to the Patriot Act, 9/11. The Patriot Act of 9/11, uh, about a 400-page document that was within 2 months is what it passes a law. It took away all your rights essentially under the Bill of Rights.
Mhm.
I mean, they can track you. They can go to your. By the way, the government can go to your business, your library, bank, and get all your records, and the banks and stuff can't tell them that you've been uh, under this kind of scrutiny. Uh, they track your phones now wherever you go and whatever you're doing. The NSA over 1 million phone calls a day they're recording. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, we're in a situation right now that growing up, I mean the future. With AI coming in now, which is the biggest fearful thing I can see. I wrote a book actually back in 1986 called The End of Man after I had seen the first emergence of AI in some of the colleges and some professors. They were all worried back in 1986 these things were going to take over. Well, folks, I think they basically have taken over.
Right.
You don't realize that. You won't realize that. When I saw Musk step forward with Trump, the first thing I said, it was like 2 days after Trump had come into power, I said, Silicon Valley has stepped forward as the deep state. Uh,
Hmm.
AI is an amazing monster, and it's going to be. There was a big executive at Google about 6 or 7 months ago that quit. Mo Godwat, he said, "We've created God. I can't do this
Yeah.
anymore." He said
Right.
they were creating robots and stuff, and the robots are starting to correct them. And he goes, "Oh my!"
Right.
They went back. Well, what is it? This is not. We're not in. We're under their control, and it's going to move very fast. I mean,
Right.
they're going. Everybody's going. You'll have an algorithm. We already got them. If we're doing this kind of stuff, we're already the enemy. Uh, an algorithm is all this information they put in, their little cylinders or whatever they want to put them in, whether they're, floating in space or whatever, but they're what they see you are. And I know what they see me as, a rebel or whatever.
Right.
Again, when the police come to the door, we've had a couple cases where police have come to the door and they're so agitated. They smash down the doors, they take people, they beat them up. In that one case we had in Texas, they were looking for this guy, and he wasn't in a home. Hadn't been for months, and they smashed the husband down on the lawn and walked off, and they go, "Okay, sorry, we did it." Left, and people they ask, "Why are they so agitated?" Because on their phones now, and all these devices they have in their vehicles, they have all this information now
Right.
on, and they have an app now that listen. It used to take up to 30 days to collect information on you. Now 30 minutes, same amount of information. So if
That's
let's
crazy.
say you all, and this is key to the Bill of Rights, they don't like the Bill of Rights. The Second Amendment says you have a right to own a weapon. Well, that puts up, most people don't realize this, but the Department of Homeland Security does um, threat assessments on homes across America. They go from green to red. If you have a weapon, you're a red. That means watch out. I mean, this is something else. The police knocking on your door, they're supposed to be servants of the people, but you're their servant. If they come all in their SWAT team gear and all that stuff,
Right.
they have these things that crash down the doors. Folks, listen, we're in a hell of a mess, and that's why I'm trying to get people to wake up and see it. But it's coming in every direction.
Yeah.
And the thing that I'm most concerned about, to be honest with you, is as AI takes over completely, and who is financing the biggest system for AI? Donald Trump administration.
Hmm.
$500 billion is given to Stargate, which is going to set up AI for the entire spectrum of the federal government and branch out into the states. Uh, Musk, with his Doge group, going through getting all this information, Social Security, your IRS information, whatever they're going to be collecting, it's going to go into that AI system. They'll know
Right.
exactly what you're spending, where you're spending. Did he buy this? Did he buy that? Watch out. They'll know. They'll educate the humans who will
Right.
be serving them. All these great science fiction movies, you go from Minority Report to Blade Runner, have been telling this for a long time.
Right.
They've,
And this is
it's
this is
arrived.
this is it. Yeah.
We're
And
here.
it's coming in the guise of, half the country thinks this is great. This is exactly what we need. These are our heroes coming in and cleaning out all the dirt and bringing transparency back. And then it's actually potentially a Trojan horse for just ushering in the very system that we've been trying to warn against and fight against. I just wanted to go back to the idea of the Constitution. So we have this constitution, this robust and unique constitution, but then if we have things like you mentioned the Patriot Act, which are brought in because of a so-called emergency and grant the president executive powers or extraordinary powers, does that mean that the Constitution and the checks and balances that it puts in place are just moot? They're just no longer functioning? Where do we stand vis-a-vis the Constitution?
The people running the federal government, especially now, it's branched out into many of some of the local governments too, who work with the FBI, who works with many local police agencies, for example. Um, there is no, they don't believe in the Constitution. If they can get around the Constitution, they will. But here's the key: the only way they can get around the Constitution is that we, the people, let them do it.
Right.
And that's again when I'm the Bill of Rights are amazing, folks. James Madison saw the Constitution and he went, "Uh oh, where are the rights?" So he put in the Bill of Rights in the Constitution, which is amazing stuff. If you use it, it's human. It's for humans to exercise, not robots. But the when you got a First Amendment that guarantees freedom of speech, the right to assemble and petition the government for a redress of your grievances, getting people together in front of a government building or whatever. The Second Amendment gives you the right to carry a weapon. Third and Fourth Amendment basically guaranteeing your home will be a sacred place. The government should not be entering your home without a search warrant, and go down the list. So it gets to the 10th Amendment, by the way, which says that local and state governments can nullify acts of the federal government.
Mm.
Whoa, folks! I talk to most people. They go, "What? Where did that come from?" It comes from the Bill of Rights. Today, in many public schools, which is just a shocking thing, when I talk to students coming out of school today, they can't give me a. They don't know what's in the First Amendment. They look at me like you're nuts. I talked to lawyers actually, and I at a lawyers conference a couple of years ago, which surprised me when I asked in the middle of my speech about our cases we were handling. I said, "Could any lawyer in this room give me the five freedoms of the First Amendment?" 140 lawyers sitting there, and one guy was getting kind of weak-handed. He started to put his hand up. I pointed at him. He put his hand down. I went, "You kidding me?" Some of these lawyers are constitutional lawyers, but they don't
They
know the
don't feel
Constitution.
confident.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
They can't get you the five freedoms of the First Amendment. And I
Yeah.
go, folks, we should be down. Listen, this is the key. The local governments are our power. They need to
Mm.
get down to our local schools. We need to get civil liberties committees together in our communities, which I call them, where we get together and meet at least once a month, get down to our local city council. And if they don't like what you're doing, stand up to them. Groups like Rutherford will defend your right to speak. Don't let them shut you out. It's your job to keep freedom alive.
Right.
It's not your job to sit and watch CNN, Fox News, or any of that stuff give you the so-called news. When you have some of the greatest journalists who ever lived said, "We don't trust the mainstream media. It's not the truth, folks. It's a distraction. It's entertainment. Uh,
Right.
Education precedes action. Educate yourself. I mean, there are different groups around the country, including us, that have all kinds of information that you can study, get educated. Education precedes action. And uh, I was on a radio interview about a year ago. Some fellow called in the call-in show, and he said, "I got to give you credit. Your Bill of Rights pamphlet is working for my kid. I have him studying it, and he knows his rights now." And I went, "Wow! All that money you pay to the public schools, and he gets it off of our pamphlet." Which,
Yeah.
by the way, I tell people grab a copy, and it works with the police. We had a case where a fellow was on the street corner picketing. Police arrived. Two cops got out of the car and said, "What are you doing out here?" He goes, "Oh, can I read you the First Amendment?" He read it to the cops, and they went, "We get it."
Nice.
They got in the car and drove away. And I went, "There you
S-
go. See,
That's that's
they don't know anything about this stuff." It
That's
blows my
really
mind.
inspiring. But John, how do we tie that back to that chilling threat of AI taking over and knowing everything we do and tracking us? So, what good is it to work at, say, my local municipal level if the federal government is bringing in this behemoth?
It's going to be very, very difficult because, folks, we haven't stayed away. And there have been some great people in the past who have warned and been screaming, "Watch out! It's coming! It's coming! It's coming!" And like I said, I wrote a book in 1986, and I tried to get people to read it, and they go, "You're nuts! That'll never happen." You know. And now we've got the Stargate system, $500 billion AI program that's going to take over everything, and I'm going, "Whoa." Why couldn't people wake up that time? They never have. That's why you end up with tyranny in your community and stuff like that. Musk too. He's been warning it all along. He said, uh, "I've been warning people, and they won't get it till they see the robot coming at them down the street." What does he mean, robot coming at them? Robots are going to start policing.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's going to be very dangerous, by the way, in my opinion, because You better watch out how you move in front of a robot. And he says if you have a human dictator, there's a chance for freedom if that dictator dies. But he says if you have an AI dictator, you're going to be under tyranny the rest of your life. And what are they building now? A tyrant.
Right.
It's Stargate, and it's going to be really sweet, folks. People are going to like it at first. I mean, you're not going to have to think at all.
Right.
But your children, some of them are going to wake up occasionally, you know. And I believe in the divine. I think that we're not going to be able to wipe out the divine in us, and that's what you know. People like Thomas Jefferson. Again, the other thing when I talk to some schools, they don't teach the Declaration of Independence, and some people say it's a little scary because of what it says. If you read that opening preamble of the Declaration of Independence, it says you don't like the government, kick it out.
Right.
You know, you can overthrow it. They do not want you thinking like that. They want everybody standing in line, saluting the dictator. And the dictator, like, I mean, Donald Trump yesterday out of the White House, a picture with him with a crown in his head. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not see that.
Oh, yeah, they issued it. God save the king.
No.
And I was going, wait a minute, you know. And some of the things that Trump's been saying, to me, I think should make people run out of the room. He actually said, you know, I can do whatever I want to do as president.
Right.
And he also said, he who saves his country does not violate the law. Now, wait a second. There's another guy in the past who said, the good of the state stands above the law. His name was Adolf Hitler. You remember him? That's the almost
Yeah.
exact statement. I'm going, folks, you better wake up. We only have a little time, America. And I think
Right.
I think we can do it. I don't think that we have to allow all these executive orders. We can fight against those things that presidents are going crazy. I mean, Trump. I don't listen. Where things are headed right now looks to me like chaos. But
Hmm.
in terms of your personal life, and you'll be watched, folks. And again, I'm warning you, go to our website, or my book, Battlefield America, goes into all these SWAT team raids. People getting shot, children getting killed. I had a SWAT team captain call me and said, I used to really disagree with you on the SWAT team. He said about a month ago, one of our SWAT team raids went into a home, and one of our cops put a AK-47 to a 5-year-old kid's head. He said it freaked out the rest of the team. They had to push him away. And listen, when you train police militarily, when they can't come to our door, you or I, what are we seen as? Enemy combatants. And that's how they're training the police today. Enemy combatants. I have policemen that come to me, really good cops, who have studied the Fourth Amendment, and when they go to the police academies a lot of times, one cop came to me and said, I wouldn't believe it. He said at functions like little parties after they do all the training, they'd all turn their back to me when I'd walk into the room because I believe in the Fourth Amendment, which says basically the government should not enter your home. It's sacred unless they have a real reason.
Unless there's a national emergency. I mean,
Exactly.
do you think that the push to round up all the undocumented migrants is a cover for being able to just crash through people's doors to see, is there anyone in here who doesn't have their papers? Is that the chaos that's coming?
Oh yeah, and it's basically telling people, listen, Trump said and schools are not off grounds. He said for ICE raids. I'm going, wait a minute here. Who are you raiding in a school? You
Mhm.
know, who's hiding there? A kid, a teacher? You know, who are you? And what does that show the school? We go in there and crash down your door, drag somebody out screaming. It shows them that you have no power at all. Go hide under your desk. You know, you're under a dictator, and that's exactly where we're headed. I mean, we're already there, in my opinion, in many ways. Uh,
Mhm.
and there is time. I mean, I don't give up whatsoever. I think we just need to keep speaking out, moving forward, trying to get local communities together because Alexis de Tocqueville, by the way, the great writer who wrote many of the some good pieces on early America and what impressed him. When he came over here, he said it shocked him. He said America broke with the past. He says it was local communities. There was no emperor leading America or no
Yeah.
ruler from afar. It was local communities. And, you know, during the uh, the war, Revolutionary War. I mean, it was ministers in towns called the Black Regiment, by the way, who many of them would speak, give their sermon, then hold up their rifles and it's time to fight back. These
Mhm.
are people who said, we'll take on the tyrant. We're not going to go hide from the tyrant or be afraid. And again, we need people like that today. But again, that takes education. I think we
Mhm.
can. I think we can do many things to save the country, but we're going to have to get knowledgeable about the facts, what we can do, and not put up with stuff. If they kick you out of your local school for being there or going to talk to a teacher or whatever, you're paying the bill. Get together a group of people, go back and say, we're going to march around the school. They don't want people out in the crowds. Anybody that is a major kind of pushback person, they're going to fight. And they're
Yeah.
going to, again, I see them in the past, the great thinkers of the past, like Martin Luther King and others, who said, he said he was going to shut down the Washington, D.C. Bang, he's dead. They're going to, the government really has no morals. I'm telling you, if you think that's true, you mean so. There are some good people in government, but as
Mhm.
far as how government operates, and now with artificial intelligence becoming so strong, um, and we've written on it, by the way, and it's detailed and cataloged on our footnote on our website. Uh, Learn about that, and then again, I think we need to educate the children and our people on our boards, and get some really
Mhm.
good people on our city councils and take over the state governments because the smaller the government, the easier it is to control. You cannot
Right.
control Washington, D.C. Like I say, I've sued it out of Washington, D.C. for over 40 years. And I've talked to good people who've told me in Washington, D.C., working there, man, this is not it. Uh, and to give you a good example of a study that was done out of Princeton University, a really good study that studied where money congregated in America. Okay, they were trying to figure the professors, Harvard and Princeton. They came to the conclusion that Washington, D.C. was run by 585 billionaires, what we would call the deep state. The seventh floor group, as the FBI called it. And then here's the other. There was another study that came out of SMU, which is scary. Where psychopaths congregated in America.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, the professors came to the conclusion it was Washington, D.C.
Mm.
Psychopaths are people that care about themselves. They can look dashing. And they don't care about anybody else. They have really no morals, no
Yeah.
empathy. And that's one thing we've drained out of our whole human, I would say, cash that's so important is empathy. How we care about others. Do unto others you'd have them do unto you. Uh, Take care of your local people in your local community. Take care of people that need help. Stop just sitting on your butt watching TV all the time. The
Right.
average American watches 150 hours of television a month. I'm saying, hey, give freedom 40 of those hours, and you might see a change in your community, especially if you
Right.
get together in groups and fight back.
Right. So I think you've given some really inspiring and incredible ideas for how we can start building back and pushing back on this. But some of the things you're talking about, educating children, getting on a city council, all of those things, while they're very real and tangible, they take time. And there's a real possibility that there's some urgent crisis being cooked up to
Oh,
happen over the short term in the next few months. So, are there things that people can do um, that manage both that sort of medium term as well as that short term threat?
well, again, start today, okay? See if there are any people like in your local community, and just see if you got some folks that will help you move forward in your community. That's the first thing you're gonna have to do, and it's again we've allowed to go so far, folks. Listen, when
Yeah.
you have all these uh, orders coming down from Trump and stuff like that, and future and past presidents, they seem to not care about again what we believe, and you know why? Because we don't seem to care. And uh, I have people who will attack me and say, "Whitehead, what are you talking about? What are you going to do, Whitehead?" Well, look, I'm on this show today.
Right.
Maybe I'll wake up 10 people. Maybe I'll wake up 50 people. Uh, and it begins. Civil liberties oversight committees in your local community, folks. And uh, we need to come up with something like these emergency orders and all that coming out of people like Trump. We need to come up with a really good way to limit that. Start
Hmm.
a committee in Congress that oversees everything the president does, because it's the Congress that supposedly represents us. And the president does what he wants to do, basically. He always has. You go back and see from the earliest times onward, we've dealt with that situation. And
Right.
here's the other thing: money is extremely powerful. The one thing I've been told about Washington, D.C. by key people there is money runs everything. You've heard
Mhm.
about weather,
Like
Mount Weather.
clouds and rain.
No, it's a huge base right outside of Washington, D.C. that goes down, and it's in a mountain there, and it was all the way down like 7, 8, 9 stories. When 9/11 happened, by the way, they said the
Mhm.
limos out of Washington D.C. were so long and led to it. That's all you saw was a stream of people go. These are people in Washington D.C. They escaped to Mount Weather. It has a mall, all kinds of food opportunities, guards, and stuff like that. There are like 7 or 8 more of those around the country. Let me ask you this. I've always asked people this question: why in the world would they be building things that they escape to and hide underground if there's an attack or something? But you and I are out there getting blasted.
Mhm.
They don't care about us. That's the point. It's been
Mhm.
going on for so long. It's been going on for, 50, 60 years. And all this stuff been building up, especially since, World War II and passed on. And I mean, there's so much to talk about and research, like I might say, is um, the FBI has been since the 1950s, the McCarthy era. I tell you, look that up. The
Yeah.
FBI has been invading people's homes for years. It goes back again to Project Paperclip. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but that brought a lot of Nazi heads into the
Right.
country. They went into again. They went into education. They went into NASA. Run Werner von Braun, by the way, who ran NASA, worked with
Mhm.
Hitler. You go down the list, and they came into education. They came in. The FBI loved them.
Yeah.
J. Edgar Hoover, if you've ever studied J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director at the time, they loved the way the Nazis operated. They sent their people over to Nazi Germany to study how the police
Mhm.
operated, which
Right.
was bingo, come into your home at night, crash down the door and do all that stuff, the stuff we're seeing today. And
Right.
it's a disregard for the people. How do you get rid of a freedom fighter? You arrest them, take them to jail, kind of intimidate them, and see if they'll go home and hide. And many do, by the way. They
Yeah.
get nervous. Again, I'm a lawyer. I've helped many people who have been arrested like that, and they're very timid, many of them, after that. They're
Mhm.
nervous. I
Of
mean,
course.
veterans, but today, by the way, when you have the FBI showing up at their door because of what? Give me a good example. One veteran, I asked him about. Uh, he'd worked with the Secret Service. I said, "What are they doing in the mountains over this region?" And he sent me one paragraph, it was 2 sentences. They said they're running exercises because it simulates the mountains and stuff overseas where they'll fight. The next day, 2 FBI agents showed up with guns and said if he wrote anything like that again, he would be deported and taken out of the country.
Oh my goodness.
I wrote the
So
FBI and told them to back off. That's good to let someone like me know because I can bang the FBI because they like doing this stuff, like scaring you, and they do it a lot, folks. I
yeah.
mean, I have radio people who have contacted me, and they've said strong things over the radio, like we're going to fight back, we're going to get our gun, and what they go home at night, and there's a little card hanging around their door with the
Mm.
FBI. FBI is coming to visit you again soon, or whatever, and they get intimidated. Uh, what is the government? What's the government's business of watching what we say?
Right.
Under the First Amendment, don't we have the right to free speech?
So
Don't
have we just become the very thing that we were fighting against in the Second World War? I mean, most of those people who participated in that conflict are now gone, and they would be rolling in their graves to see that the United States is just emulating the forces that we fought against.
Oh yeah, I think exactly that's what I'm saying. And the Nazis were way ahead scientifically and stuff too. They love their UFO stuff they were doing and all that stuff at the time. Not to get into anything like that, but the fact that they were getting into stuff like
Mm.
AI and stuff early on,
Right.
it's been going on a long time. There were some great writers in the 1960s. One was a guy named Marshall McLuhan who wrote a book
Mm.
called Understanding Media, which I tell people you should read it. It helps you understanding what's going on. But
Yeah.
basically, his theory was, and I think it's true, that uh, we're surrounded by environments, things, and then we don't see them until we're completely engulfed.
Right.
People, because you won't wake up. Open your eyes. If your mind is blind, your eyes can't see, and you won't see anything. Everything is blinded in your life.
Right.
Again, I'm trying to tell people this is a good show to listen to. And again, there are a lot of writers out there that have written about these subjects. I mean, bang, you could go uh, Google or whatever. Hopefully, they haven't erased them, and you can get them and study them. They go into all this stuff that's been going on, the
Right.
paperclip thing, and all that, and what the FBI's been doing, and whatever. And you're not going to again. How can you stop a government from like this operating? It's going to be very difficult. The only thing they fear, again, is people getting together in groups,
Yeah.
marching, and stuff like that. There
Right.
was some of that in the 1960s that actually worked, and then it went away.
Yeah.
Okay, there was some really good stuff that could be done, but
Yeah.
they will fight back. They don't care about you, by the way. So I think they will shoot certain people.
Yeah.
Obviously,
There are a lot of people who are very excited and cheering on what Elon Musk and his Doge team are doing. And certainly there's a lot of problems that need to be solved in Washington, D.C. But just kind of as we close, as a constitutional attorney, would you say that the way things are being done is it actually constitutional through the Doge agency that has been set up?
well, again, there are constitutional issues that are raised by people's rights and whatever as we look at it. But the point is that this is all being pushed through by Donald Trump's executive orders, which you would have to either
Right.
fight in a court case or Congress could deal with them. Congress is just laying back looking stupid. The
Right.
Congress can actually stop most of this. They're there to represent us, folks. And you're can I ask you, people? This is a question I like to ask. When was the last time, folks, you ever saw your congressman, your representative, or your senator out of D.C. in person in a group?
During the elections, that's it.
Yeah, they go away. They should be in your local communities working with you on how to
Mm.
change this country the way you want it. And that's one thing you should be demanding in your local groups is get these people back and say we're going to really go after you and throw your butt out of office if you
Mhm.
don't get back here and start representing us. And again, make your government work for you. You shouldn't have to work for it. All the taxes they slap upon you, and they're going to continue to slap you with taxes no matter what they say, and take your money. And listen, when you have some of the presidents golfing 160 days a year, I'm going, wait a minute here. Who's paying for the golf ball? It's ridiculous
It
that
is
we would
ridiculous.
put up with something like that. You
Yeah.
know, these guys are sitting on their butt in a mansion, and I'm against that, by the way. I think the White House should be bulldozed over, and the president has to live in a normal home, surrounded by guards, of course. He would need to be protected. But why put him in a thing that looks like we're the kings and queens? That's what early Americans fought against was the empires, the kings and queens coming over here, beating us up and killing us, their soldiers shooting us. See, we shouldn't be putting up with that stuff. But listen, we've gone so far down the road. Now you've got Trump saying he's going to build out this beautiful garden or whatever, and he's going to pave over it. It's going to be like Mar-a-Lago, and they're going to have all these parties and stuff. And I'm going, I didn't. Why elect a president to have a party? I mean, that's what they're doing. I mean, they party all the time. I remember when Obama was in the office. He wasn't like Trump, but he was having the biggest rock stars in the world coming in. And I'm going, I didn't get invited. You know,
Right.
they don't invite us. It's for them in their
Yeah.
little ways. and they get to smooth with the hot shots. We don't get to smooth with the hot shots. We're considered low shots, you know,
Yeah.
people they control. And it's again, we can do it. I keep telling people you don't have to be a chicken and run and hide. There are things we can do, and the books are out there. The information's out there.
Right.
You can study. But if your way of getting educated is sitting and watching TV, you're not going anywhere. You're just going to be a balloon head the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Why be that way?
Yeah.
And let's say you're religious. Let's say you believe in God and there's a heaven. You think when you enter heaven, you think God's going to go, "Oh, great, you watched 150 hours of television a month. Way to go, dude! Way to go, dude!" Or is he going to say, "How come you didn't fight the evil of your time, man?
Right.
Didn't you see that
Right.
Bill of Rights thing? Didn't you see that interview with that what's his over there? Did you have some of that information that's really important if you took a stand for your faith and really fought? I mean, you say you like Jesus. Well, Jesus told everybody to back off. You
Mhm.
know, he took a whip and beat them out of the thing. He stood for truth. He
Right.
wasn't afraid.
Right.
He spoke truth to power. That's what we're here for, folks.
Yeah.
We're here to speak truth to power because we have children growing up, we have old folks, we have people who need help, and the only way we're going to help them is to get up and fight back.
Mhm.
And when I was in the military, that's how I trained my men. I said, listen, if we're going to fight, let's fight. If we're going
Right.
to sit, let's sit. You know, and you know that was the way it was done. And again, I think it's important that we America has many great things it can do. It can help the rest of the world. But here's
Yeah.
another thing I'm really concerned about is they love war, power thing.
Mm.
War is how they maintain power. The military-industrial complex, Dwight Eisenhower reformed it. That
Right.
don't watch out for it. It'll destroy your country's freedom. It'll destroy your economy. And we're seeing that happen now.
Absolutely.
Hundreds, all these military bases around the world and stuff, and bombs and all the stuff that's happening. It's going to be very, very difficult, folks. But I would say this, and I would rather, like I say, if you crossing the gates of heaven, I'd rather have say, hey, wait, you did a good job trying to fight back. Come on in. Um, it's
Yeah.
don't give in to power. You are the power. That's what the Bill of Rights is about. Read them,
Mhm.
study them,
Mhm.
exercise them, and make your
Absolutely.
children grow up. No, if you have children in your home and they graduate from high school and don't know the Bill of Rights, you should be ashamed of yourself.
John, I think you've given us so much, and hopefully this has really lit a fire under people. You've shared a lot of alarming information, but I think what's really hopeful is that you keep saying there's still time and that people are the power. And so, as much as there's a lot to be vigilant about and a lot to potentially worry about, there's also a lot of hope in what you're saying. So we really thank you for that. I know that you have a ton of resources on your website. So just remind people how they can find you and read more of your writing.
Go to rutherford.org. We do a weekly commentary, which is footnoted, by the way, so you can go research it yourself, and books and pamphlets and uh, Bill of Rights pamphlets, which work really well, by the way. And squeeze them into your schools. Get down to your schools and start passing them out and say, hey, let's fight back. It's up to you, folks. I mean, if you get educated, and we've got all the materials there for you to get up, get educated, and fight back to save freedom.
Thank you so much, John. We really look forward to having you back again and have this conversation. And the next time, we hope that Nisha will join you as well.
Hope
But
so
we're
too.
just so grateful to both of you for everything you do. And thank you for joining us today. I know you have lots to do, so we're going to let you go for now.
All right, thank you, man.
Thank you so much. We're so grateful to John and to Nisha and to everyone at the Rutherford Institute for all the continued efforts to wake America up to these pressing existential issues. We're also so thankful to you, our viewers and listeners. And we ask that you help us get the word out by hitting the subscribe button and sharing this recording with others who may find it useful. There was so much good, inspiring information. If today's conversation struck a chord, please consider buying us a coffee. We here at Collapse Life run on caffeine, and your support means so much to us. If you're joining us new, to learn more about us, you can go to collapselife.com. And then we hope you'll come back next week for another interview. We'll be happy to welcome you back. And until then, just keep your chin up. It's only Collapse. See you soon.